And welcome back to the Midday Show. I am Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina, checking his phone real quick before the show starts.
I'm sending one last text. Hold on.
We're going to talk about the Facebook outage. Also, Andrew Yang, if you remember him from previous election, is announcing his own party. We're going to touch on that as well. A little Urban Meyer to round out the day, along with some stories from Penn State that I have for Mark that he hasn't heard yet. But before we get to all of that, the most important question really of any day, Mark, how are you feeling?
Okay. I will answer that question with a question.
Okay.
The New York Yankees play the Boston Red Sox in a one-game playoff in Fenway Park in 7.5 hours. Okay. How do you think I'm feeling today?
I think you should be nervous. I think the Red Sox are a little better than you.
I think you're wrong. Well, I don't understand why they're throwing Eovaldi. The guy, because it's one game, and you have pitchers that just pitched that can't go. Eovaldi just pitched against the Yankees like 10 days ago and got shelled. I can't believe they're not going somewhere else. Rodriguez is an option. I don't know. I like our chances. I like the matchup. And when the Yankees play the Red Sox in a definer, win and advance, survive and advance, I guess is the best way to say it, the NCAA, they are historic. Whether you go, the last time this happened, the Red Sox won Game 7. They were down 3-0, rallied to win 4 in a row. It's the first time it's ever happened in baseball history. It's never happened since. The time before that, it was the Aaron F. and Boone game. And the time before that, it was the Bucky F. and Dent game. And Bucky Dent was a one-game playoff because they tied for division. So it was in Fenway. This is history in the making. Something crazy will happen.
Did you start with this because you knew that I wasn't going to let you talk about this?
And a lot of it, yes.
Okay. And so
you asked me how I'm doing. This is when in my world, when you wake up and it's Yankees, Red Sox, one game, winner goes on, loser goes home, this is a fun day. You get those days where you're like, what am I going to do tonight? I just have to work. Maybe we'll get a movie. Maybe today, it is the clock needs to move faster.
As somebody who could not be further removed from this rivalry, this American tradition, I have buddies that are Red Sox fans. I know people that are Yankees fans. I have jabbed them already today. So even if you are removed from it, there is an oomph to your day. I started off my day kind of jabbing some Red Sox people. And yes, the day is a little brighter because there is a Yankees-Red Sox game. That matters.
I have a girl I went to high school with who went to Boston University and then has stayed ever since. And she has said, and she's a sports fan, she has said football season does not begin up here until the Red Sox are done. And obviously the Patriots were winning Super Bowls. They were an AFC champion. So maybe they were a little spoiled. Maybe it's kind of like college basketball that we'll pick it up after the new year when it really gets good.
Sure.
But that was the way. They are the two most old school fan bases, maybe some Chicago, maybe some Dodgers, but the New York, Boston fan bases are old and dyed in the wool, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I think the Yankees score a bunch.
You know who didn't have fun yesterday?
Let me see who didn't have fun. We did here.
I'm going to guess that Mark Zuckerberg didn't have a lot of fun yesterday.
I didn't hear this. Did they give a reason? Did they say what happened?
They didn't give a specific reason. It's not like somebody at Facebook pulled the plug. It's not like it was hackers. What was you and I, we joked about it yesterday. First of all, we didn't have a show yesterday because really, if we can't go live on Facebook, not to say you and I couldn't still do the show, but it would basically just be a conversation between you and I.
Which is how it turns out a lot of times. It might be like that right now.
Because you opened up the show with baseball.
Listen, you don't understand. So anyway, we were joking and just in the craziness of the world, because all our stuff on NorthcentralPa.com goes to Facebook as well, and a lot of people find us in different ways. Some people go right to the website. Some people get us through Facebook. Yeah. So I said to Jerry, who's our wizard behind the curtain with the tech, I checked our numbers during the middle of the Facebook blackout. And I said, hey, have you looked at our analytics? And his first response is, no, they're probably in the toilet. I said, oh, no, they're the opposite. I think there's something wrong with the count and So he looked at it and our numbers were huge and he checked it and he's like, nope, there's nothing wrong. And because people couldn't go to Facebook or whatever, they had to find stuff other places. And we were one of the lucky beneficiaries locally. People are addicted to their phone. They got to go somewhere. They can't just, oh, Facebook's down, I'll put my phone down. So for a moment I joked, said maybe it would be better for our business if there was no Facebook. But then I said if Facebook was down and never came back.
Yeah.
But then he basically said, no, it would be bad for our business because 90% of our readers would go either jump off a bridge, lay in traffic, that people can't survive without. They would just stop breathing.
It was, so, I mean, from the moment it happened until the moment it ended, I bet you I checked to see if Facebook was back up probably 8-10 times. So it is amazing. Now, like, in the meantime, like, you still check your other things and different sources, stuff like that. But it is a subtle difference. You realize.
Subtle.
What I realized was, even though I get on a bunch of other apps, I really only click on links on Facebook. I don't click on links on Twitter a lot. Instagram, you don't really do it that often. You're just kind of looking at a lot of pictures and different things. Facebook was the one place that it dawned on me yesterday, like, wow, I don't really click on anything if it's not through Facebook.
I think yesterday was kind of the solidifying moment when society realized if they had to choose between like Facebook or oxygen, it would be a tough decision.
You really think it was that bad for people?
Yes, I think it was worse.
What makes you think that?
Because people are on it all day. Like you're addicted to technology, but you're not addicted to your phone. You put your phone down and you're okay.
I'm actually really bad. I'm one of those people that like I'll put my phone down and I won't check it for like 4 or 5 hours.
Right.
Like people get mad at me.
You're a lot better than most.
Yeah.
And there are people who I'm sure for you to check 8 to 10 times, I'll bet. Now, part of yours was out of curiosity, not out of need. But I'm sure there are people who just hit refresh
over and over again.
Yes.
So before yesterday, Facebook whistleblower, this is from CNBC, Facebook whistleblower, the company knows it's harming people and the buck stops with Zuckerberg. Facebook whistleblower Frances Haugen testified before a Senate panel Tuesday, telling lawmakers they must intervene to solve the crisis created by her former employer's products. Haugen unmasked herself Sunday as the source behind leaked documents at the core of a revealing Wall Street Journal series about Facebook. She was a product manager on Facebook's civil integrity team. I might have different thoughts about this than what you think. Did you get to read about this at all?
I watched it. She was on 60 Minutes? 2020? Which one's on after football? 60 Minutes.
60 Minutes.
Is 2020 still around?
I think so.
Okay. Well, I watched her.
Okay.
So I have thoughts.
Your initial gut.
I mean, I think she brings a lot of good points.
Okay.
I think this is where America stands up and says we want less government interaction. And she's saying that the gist of it is it promotes anger, it promotes distrust, it is unraveling the threads of society that we need to make us productive and functioning and civil. But they're not doing anything wrong. It's almost like they've left the world to their own devices, and the world is proving their own devices are divisive.
That was good. Do you think about that on the drive in?
I did not.
That was good. So this is what it comes down to, and I've always come down to this. There are certain aspects in life where, because of somebody else's decisions to use a product or to use an item or a tool or whatever it may be, it can harm you or affect your life, right? So I've always, the part for me with gun control that I've always gone back and forth is that I can choose not to use guns, but if somebody else chooses to use them, and that's where the conflict always evolves from, right? Is the effect it can have on you, even if you yourself decide not to use it. I struggle with Facebook because I don't know if there is a violent outcome from somebody else deciding to use Facebook. And thus what I say to everybody is don't use Facebook. Like if it's if it's bothering you that much and it's having a negative effect on your life, get off of it. Get away from it. And
I bet they can't. That's like, it's the same with drugs. It's the same with alcohol. It's the same with cigarettes. It's the same with, like, if they're killing you, then stop taking them, but people can't.
But it's not a great comparison.
Even though they can.
They can. Facebook is different. Facebook is different than a drug. It's different. It is. Now, it is. The effects you have once you use it, I get that aspect of it, but it's not like the dopamine hit that goes to your head is different from the sip of taking a bottle. Like, you can walk away from the phone. And here's the other part too. Like, you can still use the phone, play a game, like play solitaire, like do something, like do anything or anything else that if Facebook is that awful or detrimental to your health. And listen, you and I've talked about Zuckerberg before. I think he's far from like getting a clean pass here, or far from like innocent and where Facebook started to where Facebook is now. But I always go back to that point of like, I just think if there was ever something easier to get away from, if there was ever something easier to quit, and the idea of like addictiveness, I mean, just don't have Facebook. Don't.
I think it's hard. In that argument, well, I've got a couple points, but in that argument, it'd be easier to quit smoking than it would be to quit, because I tell people, if you want to quit smoking, don't buy cigarettes. It's hard to smoke something that you don't have around you. You always have your phone around you, and people aren't going to get rid of their phone, and they're not going to get rid of it.
Then don't put the app on your phone.
But here's the issue. But it's right there it'd be like walking around with a pack of cigarettes in your pocket and saying, just don't stick it in your mouth and light it. But here they are, right here all the time. So Facebook is in your pocket all the time.
So I want to hear the rest of your points.
Well, here's the other.
Because I want to hear. I do want to hear everything you have to say.
I want to hear what you have to say, but not yet.
Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I want to hear it.
All right, well, here, the point isn't, I think the point that she's making, it's not about people who've decided Facebook is bothersome to me. There are people who love it. And they talked about the easiest emotion to get to is anger. And that because of the algorithm, as we've talked about a lot of times, what you click on, it keeps bringing it up. So if you hate Republicans and you hate Trump, it keeps bringing up stuff. If you're the other side and you hate Democrats and you're QAnon, whatever, it keeps bringing up your stuff. So it's playing on hatred because it's the easiest. And these people that go on, the people that go on and put political post after political post after political post, they don't see Facebook as a problem. They think they're making the world better because they're sharing knowledge and they are going to enlighten the rest of the world around it.
Yes, but you have to be on Facebook. It can only affect you if you are on Facebook. And thus, if you can't handle, like if you can't, you and I talked about this before. One of our biggest issues with society is deciphering what is real and what is not. And if you are somebody who has an addictive personality to social media, if you are somebody who suffers from depression, if you are somebody who cannot decipher fact from fiction online, then maybe you shouldn't be on Facebook.
Well,
because everything you just described is only effective if you're on the app.
Well, there's lots of places where you say, well, maybe you shouldn't do. There's lots of things in life of maybe we should, but it's not that easy. What this lady's saying is that that society is either too simple, too lazy, too oblivious to help themselves.
Yes.
So the government needs to step in and help them. But now, whether you agree with that point and I'm not sure I agree with that. I'm not sure what side I'm on.
I disagree with that point because I think basically what you're just passing off the responsibility of the individual and you're saying these people can't possibly help themselves. And again, this is what I would say. There are a lot of arguments where if you make that argument, I disagree with it. Gun control being one of them. But this is different in the sense of like you can help yourself. Like
you can
get off of Facebook. Yes, they can.
But see, that's like saying
make an account. Don't have a Facebook account.
I get it, but it just goes back to all the other addictions where like I don't drink, so I don't understand how people can be alcoholics. Just go through your day and don't drink because I do it every day. But the people who are alcoholics, it's just not that easy. People who are addicted to drugs or cigarettes or gambling or sex or whatever the case may be. For those of us who don't suffer from that, we don't understand.
That's fine. So it's regulated, but like you can still go buy booze if you're an alcoholic.
Correct.
Like, you can still get a gun if you're a crazy person. Like, there are aspects that we regulate in life where just because the individual isn't able to hold the responsibility for themselves, it doesn't mean we just go, well, this is bad and it can't happen anymore. And there are people right now in society that really believe that like social media and Facebook, like they are a real threat. And to me, you're just passing off the buck. Like, God forbid we hold people responsible in this country for actually like having to like sort out what they can do and what they can't do. And if you can't handle Facebook, then get off of it.
But I think that's too simple.
Let me ask you this.
If you can't handle your alcohol, then just don't drink.
But that's different because it's been shown that people who can't handle that, innocent people suffer, whether it's a drunk driver, right? Whether it's a school shooting with gun control.
Not necessarily.
There are other aspects of life where when we try to regulate things, it is because even if you try to remove yourself from the equation, you can still suffer from the decision of somebody else who did it or uses it or couldn't handle it. There is no actual reference of that with Facebook. If you actually remove yourself as an individual from Facebook, the odds of Facebook actually coming back to hurt you as an individual are extremely low.
What?
So get off of it.
Well, your answer is too simple.
How is it too simple?
Because people with addictions, and again, these, who doesn't like, okay, I'm babbling here. Health-wise, everyone should quit smoking.
Sure.
There are lots of people who smoke 2 packs a day.
Okay.
Who want to quit smoking who just can't.
Okay.
And to you and I, who don't smoke,
no, I know it's extremely hard. I do get it because my dad had to go cold turkey. So your point is well taken. It's hard.
You know who never quits smoking 2 packs a day? The people who smoke 2 packs and love it. Mm-hmm. And there are those people too.
Okay.
So what she's saying is there are plenty of people who don't struggle with Facebook. Mm-hmm. They love it.
Correct.
And we are 2 of them who love it. But she's saying, and the whole point that we should probably get to is what she's saying is they should rewrite the algorithm so it doesn't keep pumping you with the same stuff over and over, because if you get into we hate Democrats, we hate Democrats, we hate Democrats, we hate Republicans, then it galvanizes you to believe, because you read one article about how the Democrats are the dumbest people on earth. Now today you've read 13 articles and it just further emblazons you and divides us as a society.
And there is a setting on Facebook where you can see your timeline in real time. So the algorithm is not spitting out what it wants you to see. You can see the most recent thing in chronological order. So here's my question to you. Like, shouldn't people
But you have to set that.
I understand that.
She's saying Facebook should set it.
Okay, and what I'm saying is that as an individual, if you're a consistent Facebook user and you're struggling, look up what you can do about it and notice, there's a setting where I can set my timeline in chronological order.
But
so the algorithm is no longer just pumping what I want to see.
She's saying that we need to do this for everyone, for the people who don't think
But that's the product. Like, this is the other part of it too. Like, this is a product. And one of the lines she said, and you might be able to say it better than I did, she said something about Zuckerberg and Facebook basically picked finances, like picked profit over.
They do it the way they do it because they make more money.
Yes, it was picked profits over safety or something like that. And like, a part of me wanted to go, like almost every other product in America.
Well, listen,
what other product do they not sit down in a meeting and say, hey, it would be, how safe do we have to make this thing? Because if we do this, we can make X amount more. And so they go to the regulations and they say, here's the line, here's where it needs to fall. And they meet the minimum of that regulation. And then they take as much profit on the other end as it is.
Listen, I'm not, through all this, I'm not saying that I agree that the government should step in. It's complex. I've thought about it. I think it's fascinating. Yeah. And I think, she brings up some very valid points, but I agree with you from Facebook's side and the business side, and that's kind of the American way. But there are places where in society, like back in the day when cars came out, they were just like, hey, if you're going to drive a car, you should be responsible enough to learn how it works. But then the government stepped in and said, hey, we're going to make sure that you have to pass a test before you can drive a car.
Mm-hmm.
Before you can get a hunter's license, you have to pass a hunter safety course. Like you have rights, but we also are going to make sure you have. So there are places that the government intercedes a little bit for the greater good of society. And she's saying she is convinced, and I'm not fully on her side, but she's convinced that for the good of society, the government needs to intervene and work with these social media aspects. One of the things that I don't know if Zuckerberg said it or someone at Facebook said, like Facebook has more safety precautions. They block people. They put people in quote unquote Facebook jail. They're like, we do more than any other social media outlet, which is probably true.
Right.
It's just such a behemoth and it's so much bigger than the other media that it's impossible. And that's one of the other things they said. We're like, it's impossible for us to deal with all, because people post angry stuff, and it doesn't have to be politically. It can be angry about who the Red Sox are pitching tonight.
So this was the example I kept coming back to. If I sell you a product, like I can sell you a pencil, but I can't guarantee how you're going to use that pencil.
If you sell it to John Wick, he can kill 3 people.
So that's the point I'm making. So now as the pencil maker, am I held responsible because John Wick knows how to use a pencil to kill somebody?
You should be.
So
everybody knows.
This is the
3
point.
men with a
pencil.
He
did. So this is the point, is like they are selling you a product, and what you do with that product, once you make your account and you're using the product, what you do with it, like I just don't. If you're going to hold every other person in America responsible for the products they make and what the person does with it once they're using it, then I don't know what we're doing.
That's a very valid side of it. That's why it's not a simple issue.
No, it's not. I agree. Let's end on that because we just agreed on.
No, I'm not. Like, there's a lot of devil's advocate. The lady, I don't remember her name. She made a lot of really intelligent points.
I think she's very, very intelligent. I also think and you and I have talked about this before, when you're so close to a situation, right? Like when you're in the thick of it and it's right there in front of you, sometimes you just get blinded by like anything else outside of it. And so I'm sure what she saw was very like damning. Like it was very like, I can't believe I'm a part of this. And I can't believe I helped create this thing that's hurting young women, and the stats show this. And I understand her perspective and I get why she feels the way she feels about it. I just, when the solution, like when you come out and you say like, well, they did X, Y, and Z, and the solution then is to put the fall onto the company, I just disagree with that, because as individuals using this product, what you decide to do with the product and how you handle it is your responsibility.
Well,
no one's forcing anybody. No one in this country has been forced to get a Facebook account. Nobody.
Everyone.
No one.
First of all, I have 2 points. Number one, everyone should be forced to watch the Yankees-Red Sox game tonight. Secondly, and I just forgot I think one of the fascinating things going forward with this is when I look at the people who, I'm 49 years old. So a lot of my Facebook friends are within, a decade either way of me.
Right.
So a lot of the people that I see that are political negative, I don't want to say hate speech, but they're very derogatory of the other side.
Sure.
These are all people, not all, most people 40 plus who did not grow up with this. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we also have to keep in mind is the next generation of social media people are going to be people who lived with this their whole lives.
Right.
So how they handle it as adults is going to be very, very different than how some of my generation is handling it as adults.
Sure.
Because we didn't grow up with it.
Right.
So that's interesting too. So again, maybe the government's like, I get your point, but all the points that you made, this isn't how society functions. They're a company. They're allowed to do what they do. They obviously have a big business and people love them.
Right.
And the people right now, the old people are just kind of idiots and don't get it. The young people are coming and they will save us.
Yeah. No, I get it. So I don't want to deep dive into it. This was the last thought I had on it. And since we're going to talk about Andrew Yang here in a second, I do wonder, like, there has been 3 or 4 elections swung by Facebook advertising, where candidates just understood what Facebook could do and how you could manipulate and the algorithm and advertise on it and basically use it to their advantage because they understood it. And I do wonder, like, had Trump not won in 2016, there was an overthrown election somewhere in the islands down in the Caribbean where, like, basically a whole island nation was, like, thrown into whack because of Facebook advertisements. I do wonder if those things would not have happened in the last couple of years, if there would be such a, like, detrimental outcry about Instagram and Facebook.
No, probably not at all.
And so, like, I don't, like, to me, like, there is this kind of, like, there's this tiny narrative underneath all of this that nobody wants to just say of, like, did your guy win or lose? And if your person lost, well, Facebook's bad. And that is, like, a very tiny little narrative underneath all of this that just no one wants to say. No one wants to talk about that.
Yeah, there's a point.
No,
where'd that dude come from?
Andrew Yang. Which dude? Oh, that's the math dude. You know the math guy? You've never heard of the math guy?
No.
Andrew Yang is known as the math
Florida
guy.
man?
Kind of. Andrew Yang's like math guy. Real quick, tell your Florida man. You woke up the next day and you had an article on your phone.
Oh, my cousin sent me a link from one that said Florida man, and he did something, like you turn over a laundromat or something. But the first 2 words of the article were Florida man.
Florida man. He's the most dangerous man in America.
He's versatile too.
Oh,
he can do all kinds of things.
That's what makes him so dangerous.
Yeah.
Andrew Yang announced yesterday that he's starting a new party, and he's referring to it as, many times in the interview he referred to it as the third party, which I thought, I don't know if he came up with that. I don't know if his marketing people came up with that, but I thought that was very clever, referring to it as the third party, not the next party or another party, the third political party, and they are naming it the. Do you want to guess?
Well, my first thought is the yin and the yangs.
That's pretty good. It is not the yin and the yangs. That's pretty good.
What I would come up with if I would be the moderates.
That's a good one. He's calling it the forward party.
That's not terrible.
It's not terrible. If we're just strictly talking about marketing.
The Green Party.
It is probably better than the Green Party.
And the Libertarians.
Yes.
Libertarian sounds too French. People are like, they don't even know what it means.
It's just better. The reason I like the forward party, and I have very I don't have a lot of middle ground with Yang. I either really like what he says, or he's just too far out, kind of into left field, like out in the space for me. But the one thing I will say is he is a forward thinker, and I can't tell you how many times you and I have sat in this office or on this show, and I have said, like, I just want to move forward. Like, whoever, find me the person that just wants to move forward. So I'm not sure yet what the party will stand for. Like, obviously it will be progressive. I'm curious to see. However, from a marketing standpoint, he fed right into what I have been saying to you for the last 8 months.
When they had it down to the final 10 or whatever, when they were doing the debates, I think he was the smartest guy on the panel by far.
I would agree with that.
Just general from the neck up intelligence.
Yeah.
I also think he is doomed because he's Asian. And I don't think that America is, even if he was the smartest guy ever and it was proven and he's a good guy, whatever, I don't think America would vote for an Asian. But then again, 20 years ago, people didn't think they'd vote for a black guy, and Obama won twice. So maybe I'm wrong there. But I do think and I don't know anything about this part. I didn't even know this until you brought it up this morning. If their message is fiscal conservatism, social liberalism, I think that's a path to success.
I don't disagree with you. I think more so than ever before, and it's funny, like this, it's so naive of me to say this, because how many times has there been a third party candidate, and it's eventually we're moving away from the 2-party system, and here it is 2021, and we are no closer.
We've moved a long way.
Yes, we are no closer. I will say, along with what you had said, I always thought his downfall going through that, not so much that he's too smart, he's so smart that anytime he talks about something that maybe he's a little out of the realm of, like one of them being like national defense or anything kind of like on the political agenda side of things. He has a way of coming off a little naive. I don't think that's an awful thing because it's genuine. He's not blowing smoke. Like he genuinely is probably not as informed about that as the other things he's informed about. However, he does come off naive at times. Maybe it's because he's a little bit younger. Maybe it's because he's more of a math guy. But there is, from a political sense, he comes off naive. That would be my one kind of like knock going into this.
Here's my first thought. He should use us as consultants.
He should.
We would help him immensely.
He would, because you're old and I'm young, and you're left and I'm right. And what else is there? That's really it. That's how I would sum us up.
I'm not that old.
No, you're not that old.
So here's what I think. And this is, it's funny. I was thinking about this either yesterday or today or whatever. Have you ever seen Milk? The movie about Harvey Milk?
Yes, I've seen Milk. Yes, I saw the movie. It was a very long time ago. Sean Penn.
Yes. Played Harvey Milk, was the first openly gay, I would say man, I guess anyone, to win an elected office. And he was in San Francisco City Council? So I don't know what he won. I don't even remember what he won at first.
It was San Francisco.
It was in San Francisco.
I don't remember what it was.
But the moral of the story that I'm getting to, he ran like 4 times before he won. And when you think about this, like, oh, if it was, he started in the 70s. I don't know if he ended up winning in the 80s or if he still won in the 70s, but that was the time frame. And I don't know if you just said to someone, oh, yeah, gay guy, he's going to San Francisco, it's perfect, and I'm sure he won right away. He didn't win right away. It took 4 times. So if Andrew Yang starts this party and he understands that, like in 2024, they're not going to win, but they need to build the youthful base who cares much less, who's much less discriminatory about the LGBTQ community than old people. And if that's what they come out with, like, we don't care if you're gay, we don't care what your pronouns are, we don't care if you're straight.
Right.
We're worried about like our economy and what jobs we have, what systems we have, and what programs we have for America, and that's what we care about. It would be interesting to see, but it's not like Yang ain't winning in 2024.
No, probably not.
But could they win in 2032?
If he does what you're explaining. Do you know how old Andrew Yang is?
I was going to say between 40 and 45.
He's 46 years old.
So I missed, but on The Price is Right, I would be good because I was a little low.
There you go. He could run for 30 years and he would still be winning the presidency around the same time our last 2 presidents have run it. So the point I'm making is he's a math guy. He understands numbers. I agree with you in the sense that I think he knows this isn't a sprint, and I think he knows that. He could
run. He could run and lose 7 consecutive elections and still be younger than Biden was when Biden won.
Yes.
That is absurd.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Speaking of losing, Urban Meyer is back in the news. See, I thought you'd like that.
That was very good.
I thought you'd
that
like
was very good.
Urban Meyer is back in the news. For any of you football fans, he was seen, first of all,
even if you're not a football fan,
this is a great story. He was the coach at Ohio State. He was let go over controversy. Is that fair to say? Controversy. Yes. Not a good situation when he left Ohio State.
No.
He became the head coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I have a timeline as he has been with the Jacksonville Jaguars. However, they have lost 4 straight. And Urban Meyer was videotaped. Videotaped? Do we say that anymore? He was videoed? He was filmed.
There's no tape.
Yeah, there's no tape.
He was videoed.
He was videoed. There was a girl dancing up against him. There later became a video of him groping the girl below the belt. And this would be disturbing if he...
As it was reported, her buttocks.
So
it was reported by Forrest Gump.
Yes, it
because that's where he got shot.
There you go. So this would be disturbing if he wasn't the head coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars. One of the fascinating things of this story is, instead of this being, there are literally companies that like ESPN and Yahoo, and like there are people talking about this story, and the main part of the story is not an older man groping a younger female. The main part of this story is, well, how could he do that after losing 4 straight games and not flying back with the team? Which I find that whole conversation fascinating as well.
Yeah, I don't know. The part of it that I love is when he got run out of Ohio State or whatever, the big issue was he had a coach on his staff who was, I don't know if it was accused or charged or whatever, but there was domestic violence in the aspect.
Yes.
And he, supposedly tried to handle it in-house. He made some claims that there were some claims that stuff that he had no idea, but they have emails from his wife to the wife of the coach.
Right.
And they're like, so it happened on your staff. Your wife knew, but you didn't. And so he got caught in some lies.
Well, he covered up a domestic harassment. Is that fair? I think
something
that's
along the, yes.
I think that's very fair.
And his thing was, he was worried about the guy's career, and he had been a guy who'd coached with him before, or had coached with him for years. So they tried to, I don't necessarily cover it up, but they tried to fix the situation instead of reporting the situation. Right. And so anyway, when you watch it, if you want it real fun, dig up that old like explanation apology, sure, and then watch this press conference where, as you point out to me before I even watched it, for like the first 2 minutes, it's almost inaudible.
It is. So building off of what happened at Ohio State. So after Ohio State, when he left, this is what has happened for the Jaguars. He was hired by Jacksonville in January of 21. He then tried to hire Chris Doyle. Do you remember this at all? Mm-mm. He tried to hire Chris Doyle despite accusations of racist remarks and abuse, and then went on to defend his decision to hire him. So Doyle had already been let go over harassment and abuse, and also racist verbal remarks. So after what accusations. So after what had just happened in Ohio State, he then tries to hire Chris Doyle. Doyle then resigns after he is slammed. Basically, the accusations come to fruition. Doyle then has to resign a month later. He then has another staffer that he hired resign for personal reasons this past May, special teams coordinator Brian Schneider. They're being said that one was handled in-house as well. However, it was said that was also an abuse issue too. So 3 different staffers that he himself hired, vetted, and all 3 of them either had to be let go by the school or there was some type of abuse thing covered up, all within less than a year of each other.
No, the Ohio State was a couple of years ago.
Was it?
I thought he worked for ESPN for like...
So that was pre-COVID? Because I thought that happened.
No, that was pre-COVID.
Okay, so that was pre-COVID. He then goes on to lose. Then he has this issue come up with the video. It has not been a great tenure for Urban Meyer at Jacksonville. And on top of it, they are 0-4. And I'm not saying that should be the deciding factor. However, in the world we live in, lots of people get a pass, or they call it whatever you want, because they are successful. And right now, Urban Meyer is neither a stand-up guy nor is he successful.
Correct. Well, they were 1-15 last year. And from a football side, he would never get fired 4 games into it. But the thing that I love about it is you get these guys, whether it was Meyer or whether it was Paterno, or these guys who especially because they win and they can speak to the press and they have all this power. And the moment you start losing, you answer questions about losing, now your power dissipates. But when they're winning and these national championship contenders, you rule the landscape. And you are above the law, you're above reproach, you're unquestionable and all this stuff. But and that is how Meyer has lived for starting from Utah to Florida to Ohio State. All he's done is kick ass. I think he was even at Bowling Green before that. But on the national spotlight, he has been a unbelievably successful coach. So when he gets in these press conferences, now there's been 2 of them where he's kind of being attacked for his character. And he can't just look at the guys like at the football conferences. He just kind of says, this is what we do. And who are you to question me because I win all the time. But now you get off the football field and now you're talking about, are you a decent human being? And he doesn't know how to handle these conferences. Maybe it comes to the point, maybe he's not a decent human being, but he is like, they need to coach him up before he goes and handles this. His just, oh, Urban's done 1,000 press conferences, he's going to be fine. When it's not about football, when it's about a mistake that he has made, he is dreadful. Like, these are unwatchably bad.
He literally looks defeated. Looks defeated when he goes out. I think, like, this is the other aspect of it too. And like, we all have our flaws. We all have our ups and downs. When he does this, he just looks so front runner-ish. Like, like when things are good and everything's right, it's the greatest. And I'll look you right in the eye and I'll say things with conviction. And when things are bad, I look down and I can't look you in the eye and I can't speak up and I mumble my words. And it's a front runner's mentality. And like, it just makes him as if he wasn't unlikable before, unless you grew up in Ohio, in Columbus, Ohio, or Florida, as if he wasn't unlikable before. That front runner aspect of those 2 interviews, just for me, like, it just ends it.
I agree.
So I don't, and again, we all have our weak points, and you brought up the good idea of like somebody should be coaching him through this because he clearly needs it. But that front runner mentality, to me, the Jacksonville thing's done.
And
like,
we've seen. Oh, go ahead.
No,
I think he's done in Jacksonville.
I just think I don't know how let's say he finishes the season and somehow they win 4 or 5 games. I just don't know how you go into that offseason meeting. And like, what do you even? I just don't. To me, it's over.
And here's the question. This is the crazy. Well, before I get to that, remind me here. I'll write it down. See, and I pulled a pen that doesn't write. Isn't that great? So we've seen people who have had to come out and do a national mea culpa. David Letterman did it after he was caught with his girlfriend or whatever, and he came on and addressed it head on. Ryan Russillo did it, and I don't know if you heard the broadcast when Ryan Russillo came back, but he was an ESPN radio guy. Now is he just a podcast
No,
guy?
He's with The Ringer.
He's with The Ringer. Okay.
Like Spotify got him for like $200.
Basically, what Russillo did was I think he was on vacation. I don't even think he was on a job trip with ESPN, but he got like blindly drunk and went in the wrong either hotel room or apartment and got undressed and was like going to either take a shower. People are like calling the police. They're like, there's a naked man in our place. But he was just like, he was the next one over. So he wasn't trying to vandalize. He wasn't trying to rob. He wasn't trying to assault. He was just so drunk. Well, he ends up, they take him to jail. He wakes up in jail. He's like, what am I doing? But when he came back, he addressed it. He's like, this is what happened. It's embarrassing. It's inexcusable. But you're right. He didn't say, well, I need to talk to my family. And I didn't, like and that's, Urban does not stand under the spotlight and address it head on. You're right. Your front runner description is perfect.
Thank you. Appreciate that. What'd you write down on your pad?
USC. Yes. So good. It's a good thing you're here. So when he gets hired, whether he stays at Jacksonville for another 10 minutes or another 10 weeks or another whatever, he will end up in college football again because that's what most of them do, except Pete Carroll and Jimmy Johnson. But he will end up in college football again, and he will talk to these 19-year-old and 20-year-olds with the same way he always did before, like, I am king, you need to do what I say, almost militarily-ish. And he just forget about all these stupid things that I did. We're not even going to address those because as a college kid, you have no retort. Like the difference, if he was a college, it would be a little different because the kids, you can't back to him. But as a professional, a lot of these professional football players have more clout in the league than Urban Meyer does. Trevor Lawrence, who's a rookie, has just as much NFL game experience as Urban Meyer does. Sure. So when they're looking and they're like, listen, I get that you're the coach. You're a professional. I'm a professional. Let's talk to me like I'm an adult. Don't talk to me like I'm some 19-year-old that you can yank my scholarship. Sure. But he will end up back at college. You watch. If he gets fired today, he will be coaching college football next year at somewhere big, and that's why I wrote down USC.
I don't disagree with that. Before we go today, I don't know if I told you this. I went into the Penn State football game this past week.
Against Indiana.
Against Indiana. It was my
first
first
you
time.
went in? Did you play?
I went in. I did not. It was my first time going into the stadium for a game in probably 10 years. Okay. It's been a long time.
Okay.
So, first of all, it was a perfect night to watch football.
It was really good.
It was unbelievable. The two things that I thought about. The first one, it was my first time since COVID had ended, obviously being around like that many. Like I had gone to one concert, but I mean 105,000 people in a stadium. You just kind of forget what it's like to be around a group of people all kind of rooting towards a similar thing or the same goal. The national anthem came on, Star Spangled Banner, and everybody sang. Almost the whole stadium was singing the national anthem. And it is like you and I talk so much about how people are so much closer together on issues than what they ever realize.
Yes.
And it is, I sincerely, we've talked about things like we wish people would talk to somebody on the other side. We wish that people had the chance to always act like it was September 12th. Remember, people were saying, I'm telling you, I wish everybody in the country could get the feeling, could go to a college football game and sing the national anthem with 105,000 other people. Because I'm telling you, in that moment, like there, and you're looking out around you, a lot more people are on your side than you realize.
Absolutely.
And again, like I'm being corny. I'm probably being a little hyperbolic. I understand that. But more people right now, I wish I could give that experience to people around the country. I really, really do.
And that was a nice, well said, sentimental topic. Can you imagine if Penn State wins at Iowa this week?
So this is the other thing that I have written down here.
They win at Iowa.
So this is the other thing I had written down here. First game in over a decade. And when I went through the 2000s and up until like 2011, 2012, when we would go in the stadium, it was still great. Like I'm not downplaying what Penn, but the show, the circus, like whatever word you want, like you talk about the effect that James Franklin has had on Penn State football. What's happening on the field is like a third of what he's really done, because that place is rocking. Like that, the vibe, the fireworks, the Jumbotron, the videos, the atmosphere, the environment that he has created there, he does not get enough credit for it. And with that said, there is zero chance he's going to USC. One game there, and there's no way he is going. He has a top 5 job in the country right now. Even whether or not they lose to Iowa next week, there is nowhere. You should have saw the Indiana players walking through that tunnel. I swear to you, nobody wants to lose. They could not have cared less what the final score of that game was. They all got on the phone on that night, and they were like, you should have seen that stadium. It was, if James Franklin called any one of those dudes at Indiana today and said, I have a scholarship for you, not one of those dudes is not getting on the bus to State College.
Well, I get that. It's not a top 5 job, but I get your point. It might be a top 10 job.
It's a top 5 job.
It's not.
Name 5 better.
Okay. Alabama, Clemson, Georgia.
Well, Clemson, Georgia.
Alabama, 3. Clemson, Ohio State.
Ohio State, yes, because they're winning right now.
They win all the time.
Ryan Day is going to have to show it. Like it's going to be interesting. Like a year and a half from now, when it's like Ryan Day's team, it's going to be interesting.
And I get that.
It's going to be interesting.
But Penn State hasn't won in a long time, and that's why this game is so. I'm talking about excited about the Yankee Red Sox game. I'm not even a Penn State fan.
Yeah.
I'm not but I am. Do you know who else played? There's another game at 4. Is it Auburn?
I'm not sure.
I think Georgia is at Auburn at 4. By the way,
Georgia's a train, by the way.
Georgia's pretty good. You know who's not going to the national championship game?
Oregon?
Or they got screwed. Did you see it?
I did.
Oh, they got screwed. I want to come in and gloat and be like, I told you they were going to lose one of them.
They got hosed.
They got hosed.
But I will say this. They got a slow start. And when you're trying to compete for a national championship, you can't leave the door open to get hosed. That's why you don't go down, 17-10.
You know what?
17-0, 10-0.
These are stupid things about sports that non-sports people don't think about. And I don't know, because with TV deals, I don't know how much the coach has as a say as to when they play. But Oregon is up further north, so it's obviously cooler. Stanford is down by San Francisco. It's mid-state California. It's not like Southern California, but it's south of. And they started. It was a 3:30 Eastern time kick, so it was 12:30 Eastern time there. And a lot of time the Pac-12 games are like at 10:30. Mm-hmm. They're the last game on. And one of the things the commentators said was, these teams aren't used to playing in this kind of daytime heat.
Yeah.
And because Oregon likes to play so fast and Stanford likes to play so slow, I wonder if Stanford did that on purpose.
Possible.
To drive, because if they did, it was really smart. If it was just a TV thing to make money, then they got lucky.
It's possible. But if you're the Big Ten, I think you are praying that Iowa wins on Saturday, because now I shouldn't say guaranteed, but now it is likely Iowa will get to the Big Ten championship with an undefeated mark
against somebody from the East
with maybe one loss, maybe two. But I mean, because I still, even with Oregon losing, Georgia's
tough. Their defense is a bunch.
So again, I'll say what I said before. Swap out Oregon for Cincinnati. There's one spot, and if the Big Ten can't figure out a way to get a one-loss team to the finish line, it gets ugly quick.
If Penn State beats Iowa, then somebody from the East has to win out, being Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Michigan State. And Michigan and Michigan State ain't winning out.
I mean, it's a wrecking ball of division.
It's brutal. Right now, there are 5 teams in the top 11.
Yeah. Are they that? Here's the other part too. Seeing them in person now, the defense is fast. It's
for Penn State?
Yes. It is. I don't think it's people are going to try to compare it to their best defenses, and it's not. They've had better defenses than this one. But they are fast. And the other thing that they do too, and this, I don't know how to describe, as a non-football coach, they just make their margin for error defensively is higher than it's been in years. And what I mean by that is they can miss an assignment, and instead of it being a 20-yard gain, it's an 8-yard gain, because they close ground, they tackle, they break down. When teams get into open space against them, it's not a lot happens. It's very as someone who's watched a lot of Penn State football, that's very different. That's not something a Penn State fan is used to.
You can be an average typical defense is usually either really fast or really physical. Yeah. The great defenses are both. And they are when they went to Wisconsin the first week, I was like, these guys hit.
Yeah.
They are physical.
And their secondary, they break down.
Yeah.
They don't give up big plays, because when you're in space, they don't go for the big time hit, or they're not lunging at your feet. They break down, they sit, and they force you to have to do something. It's really impressive.
The thing about Penn State, and they've been so spoiled, the one place that they've been spoiled lately is they had Saquon, then they had Miles Sanders, and now so you've got super NFL running backs.
Yeah.
Well, you're not always going to have a super NFL running back.
Right.
Right now, I think they have mediocre running backs.
So
I like number 10, and I can't remember his name. He's a transfer from somewhere. I think he's the most explosive.
Okay.
But to go from, if they had Miles Sanders now, as opposed to they would be a lot better. I think their backfield is serviceable.
So they have, there's a Kane. Kane was the starter, I believe. I could be wrong on that. The guy that I really, really like is, I believe his name's Kevon Lee. Is
he the one that broke one?
He's the one who broke one. He is a bowling ball.
I like number 10. I think number 10's fast, and I can't remember his name.
I'm gonna look it up real quick because he's only like 5'11", 6 foot tall. This Kevon Lee, but he's like 235, and when he's downhill, like he is moving. But yes, their weakness this year more than any year before is running back. I think he's 239, listed 239, 6 foot 239. He's a sophomore running back. To me, he is better than Kane. He is better than the starter right now.
It's just going to be a great game. 3-3, and with Auburn just beat LSU in LSU. Yeah. So there was a little blip where the Auburn game didn't look good because they were losing to Georgia State. So everyone's like, "Oh, Penn State, they beat Auburn." Well, now Auburn goes to LSU and wins, and now they get Georgia coming to their place. Like, this is one of the ones. I need to be someplace Saturday afternoon where I can see two TVs at the same time.
There's John Lovett is number 10 for Penn State.
I like Lovett.
Noah Kane is number 21. And then Kevon Lee is 24.
Lovett transferred in from somewhere. I think he's fast. I think he's the most explosive.
From
I think
Baylor.
he can do damage. Okay.
Transferred in from Baylor.
So, anyway.
Real quick, before we end on Penn State, Sean Clifford.
I like him. I mean, he had a terrible stretch. I don't think he's an NFL quarterback. He runs. To say he's an above-average runner is an understatement. He's not your read option guy who's going to rush for, he's not Russell Wilson. Yeah. But his ability, every game, he extends drives with his legs, and he is I don't think he's as good as McSorley was.
No.
But he is a good college quarterback. Unfortunately, he's proven, he's like your good pitcher that every now and then he doesn't get out of the second inning. And if he throws up a clunker in Iowa, but I think his clunker days are behind him.
Do you?
Do you hear the story of this offensive coordinator, by the way? Were you watching? Oh, you were there.
I was there.
So offensive coordinator is from Shippensburg.
Mm-hmm.
That's where he went from Shippensburg to Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Oklahoma State was looking at his offense, whatever they called. They're like, hey, Oklahoma State wants to talk about your offense, because when he was at Shippensburg, they led the Division II nation in offense.
Mm-hmm.
So he ends up with the job. The neat stories they were telling it, he calls his brother and he said, Oklahoma State just offered me a 2-year deal, $400,000. And they said he was making like 45 at Shippensburg. So 2 years, 400,000. His brother says, is that 400,000 a year or spread over both years? And he goes, I don't care. I'm going. So he went to, now he's at Penn State, but I like him a lot. And I think to ride through, and you know this in life, but in sports as well, Clifford was really good before the COVID year.
Uh-huh.
He started out last year and turned the ball over every drive and got benched. And now he's rebounded from that. And it's one of those that you realize I can miss a couple shots and the sun still comes up and I'm still going to have good days. Mm-hmm. So I think once you've dealt with failure, there's just a calming. If you're somebody who's like, oh my God, I can't lose because the world will come to an end, he knows the world won't come to an end. So I think that helps people. I think there's less pressure on him in Iowa, because what are people going to do? They get tell him he sucks. They already told him he sucked, and he came back and proved that they were wrong, because he's got Penn State at number 4 in the country.
All right.
So I think that helps him, and I think he's going to play well.
I hope he does. When I was coaching at Mansfield and we would talk about like our guys or recruits or stuff like that, we had a saying that he's great until he's good. And what that means is like, against when he's in control, or if he's the favorite, he's great. Like Sean Clifford against Indiana, he kept plays alive. Like he had one dumb pick, but he came back from it. Like he did more positive than what he did negative when I watched him play, and even the first 5 weeks.
Right.
My fear is that when he needs to be great, he's going to be good. And when you're top 5, like when you're trying to win a national championship, I don't know if Sean Clifford can be great when you need him.
So when in the fourth quarter, when they're down 6 and it's 3rd and 9,
I think he'll be good. I don't know if he's great. I think he's great until he's good. And those people will get you. Those people will be successful. Those people will get you to where you need to go. But once you are there and once you are in the moment, are your great guys good? And that's the problem.
I get it. And listen, he's not Trevor Lawrence, but he is capable.
I was impressed Saturday. I came away thinking more of him than when I walked in.
I think there's also an aspect. Do you know what the line is? They have to be underdogs because so he's going, like, it'd be one thing if Penn State was number 4 and Iowa was 14.
Yeah.
And you're going into a tough environment and they're supposed to lose.
Right.
They're playing a higher ranked team who's favored in Vegas, who's at home.
Right.
So that is another, like, you're the underdog. You show up and every casino in Vegas is telling you you're the underdog. And that's an easy way to play.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I mean, I didn't say going to Iowa is a tough place to play. They're number 3 team in the country. But
I thought the best thing that happened to him was Iowa jumping them.
I agree.
In the rankings.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure where that came from. I mean, they won 51-7, but they beat Maryland. I know Maryland was, I don't know. That's whatever.
I don't know. It's good for Penn State, though.
I think so, too. I think they're in a good position. I'm pumped, and I'm not I didn't go to Penn State. I'm just a college football fan. I'm excited because it's a fun weekend of college football.
It was funny. I came because you, like the way you say it, we had said when we brought, what was his name on the show? I always forget his name.
Corey
I
Geiger.
apologize. When he came on the show, we had talked about, like, it is Happy Valley. Like, as corny as it is, when Penn State is successful, it's Happy Valley. I came home from the game, and I was talking to my girlfriend the next day, and I was telling her, like, how great it was and all these things like that.
You didn't take her?
And after, she was sick. And after, like, 20 minutes, I, like, look at her, and I'm like, I don't think I'm a Penn State fan, but I have to tell you, like, I'm close. It was pretty cool.
Central Pennsylvania is more fun in the fall when Penn State is good.
Yeah.
I can only imagine the people who have had season tickets and the people who have bled blue and white for 50 years because they've had some times this is their path. And I know they got a tough one because they got to go to Ohio State and they got Michigan, but they are on the precipice. And this is a game they can win because Iowa's good, but you talk about what's the pressure for Iowa? Yeah. Like, have they ever been here before?
Sure.
Iowa knows they're 2 games away from the tournament. They got to win this one and they got to win the Big Ten championship because there's not a lot in between them.
Sure.
So the heat's on not the Buckeyes.
Yeah.
Hawkeyes. I was like, the Buckeyes are.
For me, it's selfish reasons. Like, every game they inch closer and they're winning. Every home game becomes an event. And I'm on board for the event. So I just want them to keep winning, keep the tailgates happy, keep the whole, just keep that train rolling as long as we can, selfishly.
And everyone in Central Pennsylvania is rooting for Penn State except the Notre Dame fans.
Oh, yeah.
Who just lost.
They're miserable. They should be.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Thank you to all of our sponsors. And be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all your local news. Anything else before we go?
Go Yankees.
There it is. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. We'll see you tomorrow at the Midday Show.